Hey guys, what's up? So this is another JumpJet episode, and what we're doing with JumpJet is we're going through all of the typical questions that you get in a front end or web developer interview. So when you're going for a job, these are kind of the typical questions that you would run across. We're getting the questions from this really cool repo on GitHub that has like 100 of them. So there's going to be a lot of videos, and we're kind of making our way through the HTML section at the moment. And let's jump into it. Today's question, this is a funny one because actually the question itself is kind of weird, and I don't think you would actually be asked this. The question on the GitHub is, consider HTML5 as an open web platform. What are the building blocks of HTML5? That's a funny way to phrase the question. I think you will probably be asked something more along the lines of, what do you know about HTML5, or what are your favorite parts of HTML5? So if we take that as the basic question, there are a few kind of different things that have been added to HTML5, and I'll go through what I think are the most important. So first of all, we have semantic tags. If you've been writing HTML5, then you're probably used to writing div, 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 div to lay out your page. Now, while that's perfectly legal HTML5, and it's not necessarily a bad habit, it's not always the easiest way to understand how a page is structured, because everything is like a div, and then there's like custom classes and IDs to decide what the structure of a page is. What they've done with HTML5 is they've added in these new semantic tags. Examples might be like article, header, footer, time, aside, and additional things like that. On this page here, this is a cool little CodePen blog. It goes through some of the others, but essentially semantic tags with more descriptive names have been added to HTML5. They help with searchability. When Google or a search bot is crawling your page, they help with accessibility. So with screen readers or people that might not be able to view the page the way that you would expect it. And how else? It's also, for me, it's helpful in the sense that using semantic elements in HTML5 is kind of like self-documenting code. So someone could look at your page, and from scratch they could kind of get an idea about how it's supposed to be laid out and what your intentions are just by looking at the code. So semantic tags are one of the elements that they've added to HTML5. And it's a good idea to read up on those. So number two, HTML5 form elements. What they've done is they've added a few more custom attributes to the form elements. There are things like, what do we got? Autocomplete, autofocus, required. There's quite a long list of them. You may realize that some of these have been around for quite some time. They just weren't formalized before HTML5. Now they're part of the spec. Number three, HTML5 video and audio capabilities. So HTML5 has added in the ability to embed audio and video. So you can embed media into the page, and you can also manipulate it using vanilla JavaScript. As always, the Mozilla Developer Network's a really good place to learn more about that. And I actually use the audio one quite a lot. If I'm putting sound effects into a web page or something like that, the audio tag or the audio element really comes in handy. And also, you'll probably find that using full page video backgrounds is really popular now, and that utilizes the video element. So that's actually one of my favorite parts of HTML5. Let's go on Canvas. Canvas is really cool. I actually haven't used it that much, but it is really cool. It enables you to draw graphics onto the page natively, and you can like completely forget about Flash. It's really worthwhile reading up on it, and you'll see here These Canvas tutorials are pretty cool. They show you how they've done these various effects, and there are some very cool effects on here. It's actually something I'd like to get into a bit more. It's pretty cool that this is all HTML5. Next we have the HTML5 messaging API. This is a way for HTML5 pages to communicate with each other, and that can sidestep some of the issues that you get with cross-site scripting. I haven't personally used this HTML5 messaging API, but I'm not even sure exactly when I would use it, because normally I would use WebSockets or Socket.io or something to communicate between pages. But it's good to know that you can do that. Number 6 is a funny one. We've got web workers. So web workers are a way that you can run background tasks, essentially. When HTML5 first kind of hit, around about 2010, 2011, there was this big upsurge of like web workers, but actually I don't know how much people are really using them. And more recently, you might have heard about service workers, which are part of this big progressive web app revolution that's happening. So it allows your web page to essentially work like an app and work offline. It's good to understand that web workers and service workers are different things. But yeah, that is an element or an addition to HTML5 that's worth knowing about. Number 7, geolocation API. This is a way that you can request a user's location, and you can modify the page depending on their location. Of course, you have to ask for permission to do that. You don't want to be all like just stealing their data and stuff like that. But you can request their geolocation and modify your web page based upon that information. Then finally, really, I think that there's around about 8 major ones. There might be more, and feel free to add them if I've missed something. Would be the web storage API. This is an entire subject unto itself, and we'll handle that in a different episode. But essentially, you have like a session storage, which is a temporary storage mechanism within the browser. It ends when you close the browser. And then we have local storage. That persists even when you shut the browser. But it could be a way to store information about a user, or if they want to customize the look of the page, you might have like they've selected a certain theme, and you don't want to store that information on a database. You can store it locally on the user's browser. So essentially, local storage, session storage, new HTML5 APIs that enable you to store information locally. Yeah, so those are really what I would consider the 8 major building blocks of HTML5. Some of them I use a lot, some I don't use a lot at all, but it's worthwhile digging into them. And during an interview, if you can rattle off those 8 or more, if there are more that you'd like to add, I think you'll be in pretty good stead, and you'll show them that you know what you're talking about. So we will cover the web storage API and some other things later. Hope you enjoyed that episode. Subscribe if you find it useful. Feel free to comment if you think I missed something out or whatever. And see you next episode. Good luck.